I'll welcome those who are joining. We'll get started in a couple minutes. Hello, Abby, Ivy May, and Isla. Welcome. Welcome, John and Audrey. Welcome to anybody else who's here but not typing in the chat, so I don't know who you are. I'm very blue. It's because the computer. It's because the monitor. Hello, Visaka. Welcome. I'm currently here at Line of Wisdom in their little. It's not quite a kuti, but it's a little room that they use for like a meditation room, recording room. It's here. Let me see if I can pan it around a bit. This is the room I'm going to be doing morning monastery experience in Dhammapalooza and maybe a few recordings. But let's see. So this is what's heating. This is what's keeping me warm. It's like a bhavana. The gas heaters. This is a cool mural somebody made. They painted this. That's Bhante Rahula meditating at the base of the Himalayas with some lion or tiger. And there's the Buddha statue, obviously. See? All right. I might we'll see if I don't set myself up with that stuff behind me in the future. But for now, this is where the seats are. So I'm just and this is where the plug is. So to make things less complicated, I'm here. So welcome, house and new residents, and just settling in. It's still early. Today's really the first full regular day that I've had. Still kind of tired. Back to waking up at 5 in the morning to do pujas and the stuff in the morning. Haven't had to do that in a couple months. So, because all the monasteries I went to in Australia didn't have pujas. I didn't have to wake up very early. Basically, I met them. Well, actually, no. At Dhammagiri for 2 days, I did wake up at 5. But all the other places, I didn't have to wake up because I didn't have breakfast either. All right, morning. Morning. I'm thinking it's morning monastery experience. Evening, Bella and Gautam. Evening, Yankee. It is kind of a boring background, isn't it? I think the mural would be kind of more interesting. Maybe next Dhammapalooza. All right, I think we're close to. There it is, 8:05. Hello, Anthony. Welcome. Let's get started. Let me share screen here. It's been a while, so we can do Abhinhang Paccavekittabha Dhamma. And Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Actually, just in case there's people who have a blurry screen, I'll make it bigger for everybody. Atikontena bhagavata janata passata arahata samma sambuddhena panchathanani sammadakkhani yang abinham pacchavikittabani yattiyava purisena va gahattena va pabbajitena va katamani pancha Jara Dhammo mi jaranganati toti abhinhang pachavikittabang Vyadi Dhammo mi vyadinganati toti abhinhang pachavikittabang Marana Dhammo mi marananganati toti abhinhang pachavikittabang Sabehi me piyehi manapehi nanavavo vinabhavo ti abhinhang pachavikittabang Kamma sakome, kamma adaya do, kamma yoni, kamma bandhu, kamma patisirano, yankyamman karisami, kalyanang va papakang va tassadaya do bhavisamiti, abhinnang pachavikittabang. All right, English. Dhamma is to be reflected upon always. 5 things have been well taught by the Sublime One who knows and sees, the Worthy One perfectly enlightened by himself. These are subjects always to be reflected upon by women or men, householders or those who have gone forth. What are the 5? I am of the nature to decay. I have not gone beyond decay, is always to be reflected upon. I am of the nature to be diseased. I have not gone beyond disease, is always to be reflected upon. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death, is always to be reflected upon. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and vanish, is always to be reflected upon. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, whether good or evil, of that I shall be the heir, is always to be reflected upon. Sadhu. So one interesting quick thing here. You might see this translated as, and by me, I've used this translation before, different ways. I am of the nature to get sick or die or have grow old, get sick and die. I'm not exempt from these things. It's a good way of putting it, but actually, if you look at the Pali, it's much more hopeful. This translation is exactly accurate. I have not gone beyond. That's what the Pali word means, because I've translated this myself, and so this is a reminder of you're not awakened yet. You can go. You actually can go beyond it. You just haven't yet. You have not yet gone beyond. Right. So this is like a kind of a nice reflection. I've not yet gone beyond old age, sickness, and death, but I can. I actually can. I like that a lot better than you are not exempt. I mean, that also works. It has its purposes, because technically, a Buddha is also not exempt from old age, sickness, and death. Well, death, yes, death in terms of the fact that Buddhas are parinibbana. They don't really die, because you're beyond death when you become awakened. But old age and sickness, even a Buddha, the final body, they have to deal with it. So technically, they're not exempt either. But this is an important thing to understand. I have not yet gone beyond. All right, friends. Let's see. Welcome, Dharma learner. And that's everybody that I've caught up with. So, friends, it is Monday night. That means no matter where I am, if I have internet and I'm able to do it, it's time for Dhammapalooza. Dhammapalooza is the Maggasekha community's 2-hour festival of Dhamma, where we do a variety of Dhamma related activities. We just did some chanting. We'll do some meditation later. In between, who knows? We could have there could be Q&A, there could be sutta reading, Dhamma discussion. It's all up to you, because this is a community driven event, which means that in the chat in the next period, if you have any questions you'd like me to try to answer, you can put those in the chat. If you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, you can put that in the chat. Anything related to Buddhism, meditation, monasticism. If you have anything you'd like the community to discuss, you can put that in the chat. And if not, there's always a sutta on the back burner, as they say. I always have a sutta for us to read if there's nothing. So if you have any of those, please type it in the chat. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. So Anthony asked a good question. What is the distinction between parinibbana and death? Is this described in some detail in the suttas? This is one of those things, right? Now, this makes me think, makes me question myself, like question my knowledge. Is what I said something you can directly find in the suttas or not? And to be honest with you, that's a good question. Sometimes you hear like, Bhante Ji says this or whatever, and it just becomes ingrained in your mind as, well, this is how it is. And then the question is, can you find it in a sutta? The distinct, like death being connected with rebirth. Like the only thing that I could really definitively say is that it's the Buddha in Mahaparinibbana Sutta. It's Mahaparinibbana, the final extinguishment, right? The last body, the end of the last body is the final extinguishment. So it's not called a death. So I don't know. That's a good question. That's a question that's kind of like a line of investigation, like something that this is what happens with me often. Sometimes I'll get bored with the suttas because like, oh yeah, seen this before. But then a line of inquiry comes up, something that I'm not clear on, and a question arises like, oh, okay, now it's time for me to look. Now it's time for me to find. But I guess that's as best as I could say. The only other line that I could think of is, we're talking about Marana, right? Death. I don't know, because Marana and also Mara being the Lord of Death, Buddha being beyond that, I don't know that Marana, and death, Buddha being beyond it, I don't think you could. That's probably another line where you could think, well, this is where death is different than parinibbana. Hola, Diego. Hello, Jen. Welcome. Good to see you again, Jen. It's been a while. Visaka, you would ask this question? We just went over, right? On the eve before my 63rd birthday, do you have any suggestions about helpful reflections? You're going to die. You're getting older. You're going to die. You're going to get sick, right? You have that operation coming up soon. Right? Your life is the right now. I mean, all of our lives are always the divine messengers. But as you get older, the divine messengers are really front and center. For the most people, the divine messengers are not front and center as they're young. But now the divine messengers, right? As you get older, reflect on, well, yeah, this is I'm not getting any younger. This is what I reflect on. Like, one of the things that I have to remind myself is, like, because when I was reflecting on, when, like, thinking about in the future, right? Maggasekha, maybe when I have the monastery built and all these kind of things, future things. It's always like me, like now, like how I envision, like me. But I'm like, no, by the time that's all done, I'll be like in my 60s. It's like, no, I'm gonna be old by the time, like, if it works out such a way that I have a thriving monastery and things like, I'm gonna be old man. But it's hard for me to think that. It's hard for me to kind of picture that. So it's part of my daily aspirations, the daily things that I remind myself every day. I remind myself of, like, as Maggasekha grows, you will be old, right? So don't waste youth now. And so this is a good reflection too. You're 63. Okay, well, 63 is pretty young these days. Even though if you are sickly, you still might live for quite a while. Who knows? So reflect on that, right? I'm getting older. I'm not going to be exempt. I'm not beyond these things. How do I use the rest of my time? However time I have left. What's the best use of my time? Right? That's an important reflection. What's the best use of my time? When you're younger, even now, like, even there's a part of me that's still kind of like, well, if there's a good chance maybe I'll live to 90. Maybe I have another 40 years in this life, right? But, like, I look at my family and it's like, I don't know anybody who lived to 90. Nobody in my family ever lived to 90. So I'm kind of like, there's a lot of stuff against me. So, I probably won't have that long. I probably shouldn't bank that time, right? I should probably assume I'm probably going to die a lot earlier. So, what's the best use of my time? Right? How much time do I have left? I don't know. Let me assume that it's shorter, so that I can make sure that if there's something important in this life that I want to do, right? Spend as much time with my family, these kind of things, then you have the time to do it. That's very important. 63rd. So my dad just turned 63. Right? So you're the same generation there. My mom just turned 62, or will be turning 62 in a couple months, actually. The other thing I would say is, remember, you've heard me talk about my experiences with older people and how some people just seem to grow old gracefully and happily, and some people fell apart and were miserable. You know, what can you do to kind of grow old gracefully and happily? Right? You're already doing a lot, right? You're a Dhamma practitioner, right? That's a very important start. Being a Dhamma practitioner is usually a good way to try to come to being able to grow old gracefully. Yeah, I guess that's all. That's what I would say. Birthdays are also always a good time to kind of reflect on your past. And as I'm getting older, I once I turned 40, it was really weird. My mind just naturally inclined towards reflecting on my past. It wasn't anything intentionally that I did. As a matter of fact, I even tried to kind of, like, not fight against it, because I always teach you guys, you don't force anything. But it was just a really interesting thing to investigate, how my mind all of a sudden kind of had this trigger, this turning, where it's like all of a sudden I'm starting to think about things from like 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Like, what? What's going on here? And I was like, oh, okay, well, this must be, all the older people that I sat and I heard their stories and they love talking about the past and things like that. This is something ingrained in us that we start to, as we get older, as we start to reflect on the past. And that could be a negative yearning kind of a thing. It also could be well, look how far I've come. Look how much, look look how much better I am now. Or, it can be a positive thing too. So, and maybe those reflections of the past might be a way to point you towards places you need to work on now. Very good. Visaka says, I was hoping for a response that was less depressing. I'm a Buddhist monk. I have compassion for you, my friend. Which is why I'm which is why I'm not sugarcoating it. Right? This is the wonderful thing about Buddhism, right? So I went to a big Buddhist funeral, right? Bante Uparatana, who's a monk at right here in DC, close to where I am now. One of my favorite monks. Um, I used to call him like the Sri Lankan Santa Claus. He's just this big, happy, joyful monk. The first time I ever met him, he had like a little child on his lap. So I was like, it's like the Sri Lankan Santa Claus. So much metta and joyfulness. And it was his mother who died, right? And so it was big. I mean, like 400 or 500 people, like huge, maybe even bigger. And but I was with a bunch of monks up, up the top, and the monks gave different talks. And Bante G gets up and he just goes hardcore Dhamma. It's not like there's no like like oh sadness. He just goes like yeah, this is Anicca. She's gone, and I was like yes, this is awesome. I mean, I've been to many funerals, probably more funerals than the average 44-year-old, and like this is just not how things go. But as a Buddhist, like this is like I was so happy that Bante G really went right straight for the Dhamma, and I was like, wow, this is no holds barred Dhamma. That was great. And of course, obviously, maybe some people in the some people in the audience probably didn't care for it too much. Um, but most of them, almost all of them, were Sri Lankans, and most of the Sri Lankans will at least understand where the monk is coming from. But if I like was at like a Western funeral or something like that, and I went like straight Dhamma like that, people would probably be like, "Oh my god, this person's heartless." I don't know, but this is the if it's depressing, you're not practicing it enough. I'm glad you say that you think about death every day and that you reflect on it. Yeah. All right, Visaka. Good night. You're not that old. Well, I mean, if I was in my 20s, 63 would have been pretty old, and only one of my grandparents ever made it past 71. But now that I'm like 44, it's like that's only like 20 years from me. That's not that long. The older you get. All right. So backing up to some questions. Diego says, during the week I tried the Burmese noting method. I almost go crazy. I'm back to my old practice, but I was curious, so I tried it. Do you have any view on the noting practice? Um, yeah, I tried it. Not my thing. Don't teach it. Don't really quite like it. But in my early days, because Bhante Yuta Dhamma was, one of the only monks and, big influence. And, it was what he was teaching, and I tried it. And it's not my thing. Like, it's one thing if somebody's brand new to kind of use it like training wheels. But even like a lot of the noting teachers will say, like, at a certain point you let go of the noting. I mean, like, people who actually teach noting. But some will say, no, you note the whole time. You keep going with the noting. Like, I would be more inclined for it to be something for somebody who's newer to kind of help, like training wheels, but eventually you take off the training wheels. So no, I'm not a big fan of it. But I don't talk about it either way, either positively or negatively, because it's not part of my practice. It's not part of how I share. And but other people like it. Other people teach it. Other people, it's beneficial. So it's good for them. Uh, Not so much for me. I like to, the verbalization gets in the way of the investigation. At least that's the way I feel. Um, so, like, my investigation, when I'm investigating something, it's there's nothing but quietude, right? Like, even my mind will go everything will just go completely quiet. And if I'm noting, if I'm verbalizing, vitaka vichara, right? This is like from the first jhanas, from the jhana formulation, then it just feels like there's something in the way. Like I'm kind of maybe adding something to it, or identifying something when maybe maybe it's something a bit deeper, and as I'm identifying it, as I'm noting it, I'm boxing it in, right? And I'm not seeing any more subtly or deeply than I could. So it's not really my thing, but I did try it. And by try it, I mean like for months. Like, I've tried over my, what now, 17 years of practice. I've tried a lot of different things, and I've given them a good try. Weeks, months. And I said, well, they're not for me. It doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't work. And I just put it aside. There's a wide world of practice out there. You don't need to practice all of it. All right. I've often heard from insight teachers about choiceless awareness as a meditation subject. What in the suttas might they be referring to? I'm wondering if it's borrowed from some other tradition. I don't think, like when it comes to these kind of things, I say, where's the Pali word? I need it to be grounded in a Pali word. And I don't think choiceless awareness is grounded at least in the suttas. This could be an Abhidhamma thing, right? Or it could be something that developed in the Burmese, Vipassana tradition, like the 16 jnanas and things like that. I don't know enough about it to know if it's just something like made up in the modern times, or something from the Buddhist tradition, going back at least a couple hundred years. Uh, but just going by the words, choiceless awareness. I don't know that they're really. I mean, because if you're talking about sankharas, right, it's going to be hard to really find a choiceless awareness. But the only thing I could think of is like paying attention to being aware, and like so like you can observe your mind where there is an awareness, a focus, an understanding of what's happening, but you're not. There's no. It's more like with upekkha, with equanimity, maybe. Your mind is not going back and forth, likes and dislikes, these kind of things. Other than that, and this is probably what my dart in the dark, or whatever, my stab in the dark, there is might not have anything to do with what the teachers who use it actually mean. I don't know. Dharma Learner says, I've had a cold the last couple of weeks, and the divine messengers left a lot of notes during this time. Yeah, very good. I hung out with older guys when I was in my 40s, and now 20 years later, I think I shredded all the notes the divine messengers left back then. I never expected to find myself feeling old. Well, this is the thing. It's one thing, you could tell yourself over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you should. Um, but until you actually experience it for yourself, you can't have that deep experiential understanding. You can only, you can learn from others, right? Like I always say, I grew up around the greatest generation. I grew up around old people. I mean, almost daily interaction with older people. And do I really know what it's like to be 70? No, I don't. Not in this lifetime, at least. I mean, I'm still, things are starting, like, the eyes or whatever are not as, sharp close in, and all these kind of, basic things. But like, I don't know what it's like to, where like my day is, everything, just a walk to, you know, a, 100 feet walk, and I'm kind of like, like, or this is crankling and that's crinkling and all these kind of. I don't know what that's like yet. I don't know what that feels like. A little bit. When I did my bone marrow donation for about a month, I used a cane, and like literally just like walking and getting up, I was like my hips and stuff were quite painful. I'm like, okay, so this is what it's like. This is a glimpse into what it might be like in like 30 or 40 years. Yeah, that was an interesting month, having to use the cane. Um, but I also kind of felt a little stylish. I flipped the cane around and things like like it was like that Singing in the Rain and stuff. Those old numbers where they flip the canes around. But anyway, yeah, this is we can only prepare, right? We can only prepare, and we can only prepare as best as we can, so that when we actually do experience it, it's not as bad as it could be. Hello, Gianta, welcome. Anthony's talks about how Bhante Sujata's translation is Sankara as choices, which I know some people don't like. But I think even like I remember seeing a more modern Bhikkhu Bodhi translation, and he translates it as karma, like, which is choice. So, and if you look it up in the dictionary, one of the ways to translate sankara is choices. So this is not like just like a made up. This is just something I want to address. It's not like a made, and I'm not talking this directly to you, Anthony, but you brought it up, so it's something that I do want to talk about. It's not like a thing that Bhante Sujata just decided to make up. There is some pretty solid basis for using choices for sankaras, even if it does sound kind of weird to compared to our previous translations. But what do you think a volitional formation is? Which is what Bhikkhu Bodhi used to translate it as. Volition, an act of will, a creation, a formation, it's like a choice. But anyway. Hello, Rahul. Welcome. Hey, Bante, are the Four Noble Truths something I can continuously apply to my experience in my day to day, like I could the three characteristics of existence? Yeah, sure. The Four Noble Truths are something that we gradually come to full experiential awareness of, right? And during my morning monastery experience, we just went over the analysis of the truths, right? And the first noble truth of dukkha is to be understood. So if you are, trying to always understand your suffering, understanding your dukkha, then you're, practicing the first noble truth. The second noble truth of tanha, of thirst, craving, is to be abandoned. Right? Observing your experiences in your daily life, especially those times where maybe craving hit, but you were able to let it go. You were able to not follow through, like just allow that craving to control you. Right? That's also the third noble truth, right? The cessation, right? You observe a craving arise, you're able to ride it out and you're able to see it cease. There might be many minutes, hours, maybe a full day, where you can observe it get lesser and lesser as you give it no energy, as you don't, get wrapped up in it. And then it goes away. And the third noble truth is to be realized, the cessation, right? Complete letting go, complete abandonment is to be realized. And the fourth noble truth is the Noble Eightfold Path, and that is to be done, to be practiced. So thinking of, your experiences in terms of what is creating, dukkha, all the arising of your craving, and observing when dukkha and tanha cease temporarily. Obviously you're not awakened. They haven't ceased permanently, but you can observe a temporary cessation of these things, right? So that's how you can think about in terms of applying the Four Noble Truths to your daily life. Oh, hello, Tate. Tate says, I think choiceless awareness comes from Krishnamurti, who was Hindu, if I'm not mistaken, although he did have a bunch of experience. He did have a bunch of interactions with Buddhist teachers back in the days. I heard of Krishnamurti maybe about a year ago, and because his name kept popping up, and then I looked on YouTube and watched him have some talks with some Buddhists. Visaka/Elaine says, is cremation considered an acceptable Buddhist practice? Sure. I would go for a sky burial, but I don't think my neighbors would approve. Nor is a sky burial legal in many places. So that's a big issue there, right? The sky burial is, you have to think about the legalities. But cremation is fine. There's no, like, the way of the body, like there's no attachment to the body or need of the body. It's like, like if you cremate it, then the body cannot rise again in the future, like that. As far as I'm aware, this is, one of the things for like the the ancient traditional Jewish view of like the literal body will come back, um, and so you need to preserve it and things like that, right? Same thing with like the Egyptians, right? Preserving the body for the for the path to the afterlife. All these kind of things. There's nothing like that in Buddhism. So, however the body is handled is how it's handled. There's no real care for that, right? There's no. The Buddha says that the person moves on, the mind moves on according to its karma. The body is there. Stays behind with the relatives, and the relatives divvy up the fortune and deal with the body as they will. Dharma learner says, "Can you help with the term vijnana? I remember hearing it as consciousness. I'm reading a book by Bhante Punaji, where he defines it as perception. I'm confused since I thought Sanya was. What does he? I'm aware of this because I have in the past followed Bhante Punaji's teachings, not deeply and heavily, but he is quite an interesting character that and I kind of like some of the things he says and some of the things he translates. Um, but my what I would want to know is what does he translate Sanya as? That's kind of um, maybe because he does translate like for instance he translates bhava. A lot of people translate bhava as rebirth, but he translates it as existence, which is another way you can translate bhava. I prefer it as existence. I like it. So you would say uh, bhava could also be re-existence. You are existing again. um, but yeah, I would need to or want to know what he is translating um, sanya as, that he would use the English word perception for vijnana. So if you have the book handy and you can put that in there, I can respond. John says, was badly injured in October and got to see with my own eyes a cross section of the muscles, tendons, and skin and tissues of my left leg. It was shocking at first, but now I can relax into that meditation. I think about like that, like what would it like when I've had like deep cuts, like I've tried to like see, like if I can see the bone and things like that. Um, it's a fascinating thing. The only time I ever saw something like that was actually when I was young. I think I was maybe 14, and I was my parents had gone on the rare kind of like dinner by themselves. I think it was maybe an anniversary or whatever. And so myself and my two sisters were, I'm 14, my young middle sister's 12, the other one's 10. So we're old enough, to be by themselves. And my third grandparents were next door, so there was an issue. And my little sister's doing just cartwheels, just on the tile floor, and something happened with her cartwheels, and she ends up breaking her arm. And I see like a piece of the bone coming out of the skin, and the arm just kind of hanging, and I'm like, oh. And so we went over and got my third grandparents, and then we went to the hospital and they called my parents and all that stuff. But that would have to be a fascinating thing, right? Because the skin, as the Buddha says, the skin wraps the puppet, right? when you actually will actually see, like, oh, like, no, that's, if I'm thinking this body is me, well, that would be me too then. That's part of this body, right? This is it. This is what this is what this body is. I remember one of my mindfulness of death practices at Bhavana when I was in front of the skeleton. This is after I've been practicing these practices for many, many years. Um, I had this vision of my body essentially kind of like disassembling and being placed on like a big pyre. And I don't mean like liver, I mean like thousands of parts, right? Oh, thousands of parts. And it was quite a fascinating thing. And Visaka says the very kind thing. John, how are you now? I'm talking about body parts and things, and Visaka is like very kind and compassionate. Are you okay? I mean, I've also been doing morning monastery experience with John for months and months, and I mean, so I kind of know he's at least alive and okay. Uh, and I think I actually remember you talking about this. Yeah. Hello, Metika. Welcome. Diego has a very good question. I practice the Brahma Viharas almost every day. I've tried a lot of different instructions from different teachers, but I can't seem to feel strong, deep, intense emotions during practice. Whereas a friend regularly cries during the practice. Am I doing something wrong? Should I be feeling something different? Do you have any comments? I've never cried during metta. See, this is the thing. I think that for one, different people have different proclivities, different levels of outward emotion and things like that. And secondly, it can take quite a number of years before you really start to really feel kind of strong, amazing feeling of really like just blasting metta out and just having this like feeling this like metta power that I haven't experienced in like many years because I had it for a bunch of years and then it went away. Right. And then, I got depressed because I'm not feeling this beautiful, wonderful metta power anymore. And then Bhante G, when I asked Bhante G, said, yeah, that happens. What's more important is your mind. Is there less hatred and resentment and anger in your mind? Right? Are you having more goodwill and friendliness towards all other beings? I'm like, yeah, no, that's still pretty good. And it's like, well, then that's metta, right? So it's important not to be too attached, not to be too worried about kind of like strong feelings and emotions. The way I describe metta for me is, especially like when I've had it like deep metta, I grew up in a big Italian family. Like, I grew up with a kind of like the Italian immigrant thing. And like, on the weekends, aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and everybody together and eating and at the big table and all that. And it dawned on me doing metta one time years ago that feeling that I had being around the table with family and also with close friends is the feeling I was getting with metta. And if those of you who've been on metta retreats with me or you've heard me do metta guided meditation, sometimes I'll mention this if I have enough time. If it's a shorter meditation, I shorten it. But it's that the feeling of like safety, belonging, non-judgment, right? Of being around family. Now, of course, not everybody. Some people, family judgment and all kinds of, obviously. Um, but it's that kind of that feeling of just pure goodwill and goodness. And like I remember having an image once of just like metta is like that table just expanding out to infinity and inviting, and all beings are at the table with me, or I invite all beings to the table, right? So like those kind of feelings, like the strong feelings of goodwill, and like somebody's negativity, my mind would be impervious to that, right? My mind would, my metta would just like I was able to protect my mind, my metta, just like the mother protects her only child. My metta was strong, and it still is. The emotion and the power and the strength and like that kind of feelings that I used to have, it's not really there anymore. And there's a bunch of factors into that. But I still have strong metta. It's still there. So what I would say, don't feel like you have to have something. It's what is coming up in your experience. You just keep practicing metta. Some people say, teachers will say, fake it till you make it. And I was kind of like that in the beginning. It was kind of like, I don't necessarily feel anything or anything happening, but I'm just going to keep practicing, keep giving metta, keep practicing metta. And it works. It takes time. Dharma Learner says this is talking about Bhante Punaji and his translating situation here. Sanya, which is normally translated as perception, he says is sensation, which is an interesting one because feeling / sensation is usually for Vedana, right? So to be honest with you, I think I would need to refresh myself by like reading some kind of reading Bhante Punaji's explanation for why he chose those translations, because I think there needs to be, if you understand the context and the reasoning behind it, then you might understand why he chose it. But that's not coming to mind right now, to be honest with you. All right. So we've come to the end of the chat. Let's see, 8:54. I'm just thinking about a sutta, but I don't know that we have time for a Majjhima Nikaya sutta. But we might be able to do a sutta roulette. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do sutta roulette? So last time we did Samyutta Nikaya, so let's do the Anguttara Nikaya. Let me share screen. All right, so for those of you who don't know what Sutta Roulette is, it's a little game we play here. The idea is this. I ask for a number, and then everybody spams a number. The first person who gets the number in is the number we choose. And then I ask for a second number. And that gives us the random sutta that we're going to read. Sutta Roulette is great because you don't know what you're going to read. It could be anything from the whole from the whole Nikaya. So the diversity of what we read is interesting. But also, because I'm sharing it on the screen, for those of you who are kind of newer to navigating the suttas, this can help you understand how to navigate the suttas better. All right. So, for instance, we're in the Anguttara Nikaya. Anguttara Nikaya is translated as the numerical discourses of the Buddha. And what that means is, as you can see, book of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 11s. What that means is the suttas are grouped by the number of things. So say you want to learn about the 5 aggregates, the 5 hindrances. You go to the book of 5s. You want to learn about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 noble truths. You go to the book of 4s, right? These kind of things. So this is what the Anguttara Nikaya is good for. And so what now we're going to do is, I'm going to just bracket off here. This bracket is what I'm going to do in between each numbers. So we have 11 books in the Anguttara Nikaya. So first number set is, after I say go, type in a number between 1 and 11. So type in a number between 1 and 11 in 3, 2, 1, go. And if there is one person who keeps getting in first because they have superior internet, like a T1 direct thing to the internet, then I'll take that into consideration. So Diego comes in with the Book of 4s. All right. Book of 4s. Let's see, what do we have here? So let's do a number. Only 2 people put a number in when we have 17 people on the screen. Interesting. People might think this is silly, playing games on a Dhamma stream. I don't know. We'll see. So a number between 1 and 100 in 3, 2, 1, go. $83. Oh, Diego came in first, but I think maybe Diego's the only one playing. All right. So Book of 4s, sutta number 83. What do we got here? Second 50. See? So you go to Sutta Central and you want to go to the Anguttara Nikaya. You see how it's described. So we're in the Book of 4s. We need to go to the second 50. And you see all these chapters, but under you'll see the numbers, right? So if you're don't know the chapter, but oh, hello, Christine. It's good to see you, Christine. It's been a while. All right. So if you don't know the chapter, let's see, 83. So let's scroll down. 481 to 490. Now, this is probably one of those. 483, where criticism takes you. Let's see what this sutta says here. Mendicants, someone with 4 qualities, we're in the Book of 4s, is cast down to hell. What for? Without examining or scrutinizing, they praise those deserving of criticism. And they criticize those deserving of praise. Now that's interesting, right? This is always an interesting one, because the perception is that we shouldn't criticize. Some people will say, like, man, the Buddha wouldn't criticize, man. But no, actually, you see in the sutta, like, there are people worthy of criticism, and there are times you should criticize. Right? This is. It's not that you don't; it's that you should do it wisely. Right? So, without examining or scrutinizing, they praise those deserving of criticism. They criticize those deserving of praise. They arouse faith in things that are dubious, and they don't arouse faith in things that are inspiring. Someone with these four qualities is cast down to hell. Someone with these four qualities is raised up to heaven. What for? After examining and scrutinizing, they criticize those deserving of criticism. They praise those deserving of praise. They don't arouse faith in things that are dubious, and they do arouse faith in things that are inspiring. Someone with these four qualities is raised up to heaven. And you do see, actually, you see the Buddha modeling this in the suttas, because there are plenty of times where, what do you think when the Buddha says, yes, foolish person? What do you think he's doing? He's criticizing. He's not saying, oh, it's okay, man. You did this wrong. No, and not only that, we went over this in the last yesterday during Suttas Monday when we were reading. If you look at the word that people usually translate as foolish, it's much more worse. It's like useless, stupid, right? And so the Buddha can go pretty harsh, when it's somebody who's done something really bad, something that you want to almost make an example of them, right? Like, yes, stupid fool, stupid useless person, right? So, oh yeah, you're just a foolish person, blah, blah. No, the Buddha can go pretty rough when he needs to, right? So this is an important thing to understand, but it needs to be done with wisdom, with metta, right? With goodwill. And so you're doing it in a good, skillful way with good, skillful intentions. That's the important part. It's getting colder in here. It was quite hot at the beginning of Dhammapalooza, so I lowered the heat. Now it's getting colder. I might break out my hat or get up and put the gas heater on a little bit more. One or the other. As night is descending. So let's see. Visaka says, I'm playing. Visaka, you're playing. You must not be on the Chromecast then. Or you're getting up and typing in a number. All right. So let's do another sutta. So we'll go back. Now, those of you who are, if you, to learn Sutta Central, right? You want to go back, you scroll up, and you can see all we've gone, right? There, we were in the chapter of the confirmed, the second 50, the book of fours, AN, Anguttara Nikaya. And now we're back. The Sutta Central is great with this, so you can see it allows you to quickly go, backtrack where you've been. Hello, Rupa. Welcome. So, a number between 1 and 11. In 3, 2, 1, go. If Diego gets first, we're going to go to whoever gets second, because Diego's been dominating. John is first. So the Book of Eights. Book of Eights is very, very good book in the Anguttara Nikaya. Lots of good stuff. All right. Only 100 suttas in here, though. So I'm going to say, putting another block in the chat, a number between 1 and 50. In 3, 2, 1, go. Between 1 and 50. 23. Every time Anthony gives a number, I'm always suspecting that he knows exactly why he wants that number, but we'll see. All right. So we are in Book of Eights, Numbers 23, 8 to 20, a chapter on love or metta. See, you can see this is a great thing about Sutta Central. I'll tell you, this is the metta vagga, right? Vaga chapter. The great chapter, Mahavaga, the chapter on householders. This is where we're going, right? Because it's 23, if I'm not mistaken. 23. Yeah. So, AN 21, right? You can see the number right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you can see when I highlight at least. AN 21, AN 22, AN 23 with Hattaka. Did we do this? Did we get this one recently? Why is my mind saying that this sounds familiar? I am familiar with both of these suttas, but I think either if I'm remembering from like 7 months ago, I think it seems shorter. It seems closer in time. But anyway, with Hattaka. First, at one time, the Buddha was staying near Alavi at the Agalava tree shrine. There, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, you should remember the householder Hattaka of Alavi as someone who has 7 amazing and incredible qualities. What's 7? He's faithful, ethical, conscientious, prudent, learned, generous, and wise. You should remember householder Hattaka of Alavi as someone who has these 7 amazing, incredible qualities. That's what the Buddha said, and when he had spoken, the Holy One got up from his seat and entered his dwelling. Then a certain mendicant robed up in the morning, taking his bowl and rope, went to the home of the householder Hattaka of Alavi, where he sat on a seat spread out. Then Hattaka went up to the mendicant, bowed, and sat down to one side. The mendicant said to Hattaka, Householder, the Buddha declared that you have 7 amazing and incredible qualities. What's 7? He said, you're faithful, ethical, conscientious, prudent, learned, generous, and wise. The Buddha declared, you have these 7 amazing and incredible qualities. And so now the householder asks, but sir, I trust that no white-clothed lay people were present. The monk says, no, there wasn't any white-clothed lay people present. That's good, sir, the person says. Hattaka. Then that mendicant, after taking alms food in Hattaka of Alavi's home, got up from his seat and left. Then after the meal, on his return from alms round, he went to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and told of him what he had discussed with the householder Hattaka. The Buddha said, Good mendicant. That gentleman has few wishes. So you might be saying, we're in the Book of Eights, but there's only 7. Few wishes is the 8th. He doesn't want his own good qualities to be made known by others. Well then, mendicants, you should remember the householder. Oh, it even says it at the end. Sorry. I jumped the gun there. You should remember the householder Hattaka of Alavi as someone who has this 8th amazing and incredible quality. That is, fewness of wishes. All right. Going back to, I think we'll do one more, and then it'll be time for our meditation. So a number between 1 and 11 in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to those who are joining. We're actually gaining people. At least that's what it says on the little numbers thing. Yeah, somebody even from Twitch. So right now we are playing a sutta game where we choose a random sutta as a community by picking random numbers. John comes in with 5. Did John get last time too? John got the first one last time. All right. John is quick draw. So book of 5s. A number between, let's see, I should go to the book of 5s first. So book of 5s. All right. There's a bunch of them in this one. So let's do a number between 1 and 200. In 3, 2, 1, go. Between 1 and 200. And here comes Metika, who I think is up in with Ajahn Sona still, who comes in first place. So we're at the 44. So the 44th sutta. So here it is, first 50. Number 44. We're at the bottom. The chapter with King Munda. Getting rich. There it is. Agreeable. If you give the best, you get the best. Unless you're the Buddha, who is, John might remember this one from last week, I think it was, right? Oh no, maybe it was a couple weeks ago from Ratana Sutta. Knower, giver, and bringer of the best. That's the Buddha. Knower, giver, and bringer of the best. Oh, what am I doing? What did I do? Okay, here we go. Agreeable. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Vaisali in the great wood, in the hall with the peaked roof. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning and taking his bowl and robe, went to the home of the householder Ugga of Vaisali, where he sat on the seat spread out. Then Ugga went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, Sir, I have heard and learned this in the presence of the Buddha. The giver of the agreeable gets the agreeable. My safflower porridge is agreeable. May the Buddha please accept it from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted it out of compassion. Sir, I have heard and learned this in the presence of the Buddha. The giver of the agreeable gets the agreeable. My pork with jujube is agreeable. May the Buddha please accept it from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted it out of compassion. My fried vegetable stalks are agreeable. May the Buddha please accept them from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted them out of compassion. My boiled fine rice with the dark grains picked out, served with many soups and sauces, is agreeable. May the Buddha please accept it from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted out of compassion. My clothes imported from Kazi are agreeable. May the Buddha please accept them from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted them out of compassion. Kazi is the best. That would be like giving a monk like a, I don't know, like a Gucci robe. Kazi. Silks from Kazi. So the Buddha accepted them out of compassion. My couch spread with woolen covers, shag piled or embroidered with flowers, and spread with fine deer hide, with canopy above and red pillows at both ends is agreeable. But, sir, I know that this is not proper for the Buddha. Right? And you can see this in the monk's rules. You can have a rug, you can have various things. But the minute they have like flowers and all kinds of extra embroideries and decorations, not allowable. However, this plank of sandalwood is worth over $1,000. May the Buddha please accept it from me out of compassion. So the Buddha accepted it out of compassion. And then the Buddha rejoiced with Ugga with these verses of appreciation. The giver of the agreeable gets the agreeable, enthusiastically giving clothing, bedding, food, and drink, and various requisites to those of upright conduct, knowing the perfected ones to be like a field for what's given, offered, and not held back. A good person gives what's hard to give. The giver of the agreeable gets the agreeable. And then the Buddha, having rejoiced with Ugga, with these verses of appreciation, got up from his seat and left. Then, after some time, Ugga passed away and was reborn in the host of the mind-made gods. At that time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove and not Tapindika's monastery. Then, late at night, the glorious god Ugga, lighting up the entire Jeta's Grove, went up to the Buddha, bowed, and stood to one side. The Buddha said to him, Ugga, I trust it is all you wish. Sir, it is indeed just as I wish. Then the Buddha addressed Ugga in verse. The giver of the agreeable gets the agreeable. The giver of the foremost gets the foremost. The giver of the excellent gets excellent. The giver of the best gets the best. A person who gives the foremost, the excellent, the best. They're long lived and famous, wherever they're reborn. That was an interesting sutta. All right, friends. Well, we are at coming up to 9:20, which would be perfect. It's perfect to start our meditation. Then we'll get done about 9:50. We'll read some Dhammapada verses and then close out for the night. So set yourself up in a comfortable and stable position, whatever position works best for you. Close your eyes. We'll begin by scanning through the body, bringing our focus and our attention from the external to the internal, this mind and body. We do this so that we can slowly focus our mind and calm our mind, and also to make sure that our posture is a comfortable and stable position for meditation. So bring your focus and attention to your feet. By bringing focus and attention, this means to bring paying attention, focusing in on any feeling or sensation, Vedana, that is arising in that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor or the cushion, the opposite leg. Bring your focus and attention up through the ankles into the calves. Up through the knees and into the thighs. What's the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair, the cushion, couch? Up through to the hips and pelvis. Observing how the position of the hips and pelvis impacts the rest of the body, the lower body, and the spine. When you're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest. Up through to the shoulders, checking that they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Down through to the elbows and hands. Observe how the position of the elbows and hands also impacts your posture and cause the spine to bend and slouch. And finally, up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning and slouching left or right, back and forth, chin parallel to the floor. You're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position. Let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. Doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. Watch as the body breathes in, watch as it breathes out. Whenever you're meditating, remember to practice laying down all your worries, concerns, responsibilities, burdens. Put down your world for the time of the meditation and just follow the breath. As you follow the breath, your mind will become bored, seek to run away to the past or the future, across the world or the galaxy, or an external distraction, like a sound will arise. Your mind will chase after it. For a time, you will totally lose mindfulness, focus. Slowly, it will dawn on you that you have been taken away from the breath. When this happens, try to come back, bring back all your mindfulness and focus. Acknowledge that you've been taken away from the breath. Practice letting go of the breath by neither getting attached to it, getting excited about it, nor getting agitated and trying to push it away. Simply just try to let it go, let it be, give it no energy, let it go on its way, and then return to the breath. Whenever you're taken away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. Follow the breath towards a calm and peaceful mind that sees things as they are. As you're following the breath, every once in a while, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm and tranquil or not? As it becomes more calm and tranquil, you may begin to notice further characteristics of the breath. Sometimes the breath is long and deep, sometimes short and shallow. Try to observe how the breath is changing, different, moving. Try to see the breath deeper. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Slowly start to open your eyes. Come back from the internal to the external. Reflect on how the general tone, state of your mind has changed from before the meditation to now. And on any experiences, insights, struggles, triumphs you had with the meditation. And while you do that, we'll bring up some Dhammapada verses. Last week we finished the Dhammapada, so now we're back to square one again. In the Yakavagga. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like a never departing shadow. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts do not still their hatred. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who do not harbor such thoughts still their hatred. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is a law eternal. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. Just as a storm throws down a weak tree, so does Mara overpower the man who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who is uncontrolled in his senses, immoderate in eating, indolent, and dissipated. Just as a storm cannot prevail against a rocky mountain, so Mara can never overpower the man who lives meditating on impurities, who is controlled in his senses, moderate in eating, and filled with faith and earnest effort. Whoever, being depraved, devoid of self-control and truthfulness, should don a monk's yellow robe, he surely is not worthy of the robe. But whoever is purged of depravity, well established in virtues, and filled with self-control and truthfulness, he indeed is worthy of the yellow robe. Those who mistake the unessential to be essential, and the essential to be unessential, dwelling in wrong thoughts, never arrive at the essential. Those who know the essential to be essential, and the unessential to be unessential, dwelling in right thoughts, do arrive at the essential. Just as rain breaks through an ill-thatched roof, a house, so passion penetrates an undeveloped mind. Just as rain does not break through a well-thatched house, so passion never penetrates a well-developed mind. The evildoer grieves here and hereafter. He grieves in both worlds. He laments and is afflicted, recollecting his own impure deeds. The doer of good deeds rejoices here and hereafter. He rejoices in both the worlds. He rejoices and exults, recollecting his own pure deeds. The evildoer suffers here and hereafter. He suffers in both worlds. The thought, evil have I done, torments him. Then he suffers even more when gone to the realms of woe. The doer of good delights here. The doer of good delights here and hereafter. He delights in both worlds. The thought, good have I done, delights him, and he delights even more when gone to the realm of bliss. Much though he recites the sacred text but acts not accordingly, that heedless man is like a cowherd who only counts the cows of others. He does not partake in the blessings of the holy life. Little though he recites the sacred text, but puts the teachings into practice, forsaking lust and hatred and delusion. With true wisdom and emancipated mind, clinging to nothing of this or any other world, he indeed partakes in the blessing of the holy life. All right, friends. It is 55, so that means we have come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Time to break out the banners, do some Maggasekha business before we get to the sharing of merits. So, friends, if this is the first time that you're seeing this stream and you'd like to learn more, get notified, find out when I do online retreats, other streams, articles, all kinds of Dhamma related activities, you can go to the website scrolling on the bottom, maggasekha.org, maggasekha.org. This website, on the top right, you can put your email in the subscribe box. And anytime I post a notification of some event happening, then you'll get an email. You can also do the same thing on YouTube. You can click subscribe, click the bell, and anytime I go live or a new video is uploaded, then you can get an email notification. The Maggasekha community also has a Discord, which is a program that allows the community to gather and do various related activities. On this program, we are a community that is based both in study and practice in the early Buddhist texts, the suttas, as we've run through today. So we're not a general Buddhist community, but if you are interested in study and practice through related to the early text, the suttas, then you can join us by sending an email to the email listed and just ask for an invite, and we'll get you in. You can check out and see if our community is good for you. All right. Let's bring out the sharing of merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hantu sabbe paniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti settiya, akasata chabumata, deva naga mahedika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanam. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief. May all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Well, hello, Shin, our friend from China. Good to see you again. Oh, and Jim Salisbury, another face from that I haven't seen in a while. So good to see you. Thank you. So, friends, we come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. So, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. And may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. So, one thing I didn't mention, we are doing morning monastery experience. So if you want to join in 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, for a half hour starting the day with Dhamma, then join us. So I'll be streaming again tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. for morning monastery experience. And then next weekend with Insight Timer and back to another Dhammapalooza. So, friends, have a good week.